Welcome back, boxing fans, to another great show with Sean on boxing. So, of course, the clown show is out as expected, right? Bivol drops his WBC title after being forced by the WBC to fight David Benavidez. Obviously, this is the typical PBC fucking thing we consistently see with the corruption with these sanctioning bodies. Literally, David Benavidez had every opportunity to get a big shot for Undisputed and to make huge money in this career. But he'd prefer to win a vacant title so that the PBC can act as if somehow they have another pay-per-view star who's doing something in the sport of boxing. The irony is what the PBC and these so-called Benavidez fans aren't telling you is the whole lead up to this. When Benavidez was literally a champion at 168 pounds, where was this energy then? Where was this smoke about him actually doing something, fighting the other champions? Why were you pulling a Tank Davis at 168 pounds and ducking all the other champions in the division, right? Where was your fight with Caleb Plant? An in-house fight, which everyone was pushing for and everybody expected, because of course it was an in-house PBC unification fight. Where is your fight with Zurdo Ramirez, right? Zurdo, who at the time was probably the most recognized champion at 168 pounds. Where was your energy with Smith, Callum Smith, who had just won the World Boxing Super Series? Of course, at that time, people were giving this clown a complete pass, acting as if he was actually doing something in the sport of boxing. Only after Canelo goes there, does what he didn't do, what he was too afraid to do, what the PBC was protecting him from, they clout chase and attach themselves to Canelo Alvarez to try to build their name, not based on what he's actually done in the ring, but based on somebody else's accomplishments. And this is consistently what the PBC has always done in the sport of boxing. Use somebody else's compliments or somebody else's accomplishments.
Oh, sorry.
No problem. Using somebody else's accomplishments to get praise. Right, Yvette?
Right.
See, even Yvette knows. This is just the way these guys have always operated, through this disingenuous method of building up so-called pay-per-view superstars. Yet, which of them are pay-per-view superstars? Tank Davis, Errol Spence, Deontay Wilder? None of them were superstars. They were good pay-per-view fighters that were jammed down our throats, and literally other fighters were used to build them up. Whether it was Bud Crawford, whether it was guys like Lomachenko and Shakur Stevenson, whether it was guys like Canelo Alvarez, whether it was guys like Anthony Joshua. These guys got praised not for what they did in the ring, not for the accomplishments they were actually doing in their careers, but based on clout chasing off of other people's accomplishments. And now that's what David Benavidez is doing. Benavidez could have worked, not even signed a contract, but worked with Turki Al-Sheikh, like other PBC fighters had, Deontay Wilder, Andy Ruiz, and several others, to get paid career high paydays and get legacy opportunities. But this clown chose to go to Saudi Arabia, didn't even talk to Turki Al-Sheikh, didn't even watch the unification fight between two pound-for-pound fighters, potential opponents, because they knew all along they were never going to go this route. They were never really going to try to make a fight with Bivol and work with Turki Al-Sheikh. They were going to do what the PBC does, which is give us retread fucking fights that nobody cares about, hype up a fighter acting as if he's the best fighter in the division, even though clearly he is not. Ask yourself, how did David Benavidez become Bivol's mandatory? This is a guy that has 2 fights at 175 pounds. One of them against a guy who'd been retired for 4 years. 4 years the guy was retired. But you beat him and you become a mandatory. Now scratch your head and ask yourself how the hell that happened and if that was a setup or not. Because do you think Vosdick was going to become mandatory if he won? I guarantee you he wasn't going to be. But this was all set up in plans. This is the way the sanctioning bodies and the promotional companies consistently work, right? The WBC already showed you they didn't want Bivol to be their champion a long time ago when they said if he fought Beterbiev, they weren't going to give him the WBC title. So they were never in favor of Bivol, the Russian fighter, to represent their belt to begin with. So it's no surprise now they basically went in there and robbed him blind, doing what the IBF consistently has done to world champions throughout boxing, except if you're a PBC fighter named Charlo or Spence, and then the IBF would be more than happy to let you hold their title and never fight a mandatory. Ask yourself, why was that okay when other fighters are consistently getting stripped? Usyk, Canelo again, right? But people don't want to be factual. They don't want to be honest. They are prisoners of the moment. And because, of course, Bivol is rematching Beterbiev. He's guaranteed $10 million. It's a historical legacy fight, having a trilogy fight with Beterbiev, another pound-for-pound fighter. How are you ducking Benavidez to fight a pound-for-pound fighter, right? Beterbiev is one of the best light heavyweights in modern boxing history. David Benavidez is not one of the best fighters at 168. He's definitely not one of the best fighters at 175. He hasn't proven any of that to anybody. Then he fought David Morrell, a fighter who has never fought a top 10 opponent in his career, a guy that consistently had a WBA baby belt, right? A guy that Benavidez could have fought at 168, chose to not fight him and chase after Demetrius fucking Boo-Boo Andrade. And Punch Drunk and True School, they're going to act like Demetrius Andrade is like this bad man, this guy who'd never beaten a world champion in his career. The first time he faced a world champion, he got knocked out, right? That's what happened to him. KO. And now he's been off the radar because this dude was never a great fighter. He was a hype job who never fought any elite fighters in his career because he knew, like you and I knew, that he wasn't that good and inevitably he wouldn't beat those fighters, right? I ain't hating on Benavidez. I'm just scratching my head thinking, of course, this is the way the PBC wants to play it. The PBC has a history of not wanting to work with other platforms to make great fights. Here you have an opportunity to fight on the undercard, get paid a career high payday fighting Smith on the undercard of Beterbiev Bivol's trilogy, guaranteeing you an undisputed world title fight. But of course, we always knew he was never serious about fighting Beterbiev. He was never serious about fighting Bivol. And you will see, now that he's the WBC champion, the bum-ass opponents he's going to fight on pay-per-view, charging you $80 to watch opponents that literally nobody cares about. Do you think he's going to get a Callum Smith fight in the U.S.? That fight's not going to happen because Callum Smith will make more money working in Saudi Arabia, fighting on the same time scale as the UK against better opponents. David Benavidez is literally going to be a WBC champion doing what Deontay Wilder did when he was the WBC champion, fighting WBC ranked opponents that are aligned with the PBC, but fighters that nobody knows, nobody cares about, and nobody's been asking for.